Okay, I'd like to call to order the recess meeting, senior work session meeting from January 24th, which was originally recessed from January 17th. So our first person to talk to today is Brandon, Register of Deeds.
This is where everybody else sits, so I guess that's where I
Mike,
go.
that mic
Yeah, with
picks
that
up
microphone, we need you to sit there.
I got handouts for everybody. Let me get them together here. This is bullet by bullet from the template.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Commissioner Mendenhall, did you receive yours?
Yes, I did, Brandon, thank you.
Thank you, Amber. Well, first, I want to thank the board for this opportunity. I think these are good ideas, these work sessions, and the invitation to come up and talk a little bit about the department. You hear enough about it every quarter or so, but maybe I can go into more detail today. We'll start with the executive overview of the mission of the department. Stop me when you have questions, or else I'll just keep on going. All right? Okay. I'm going to read this mission statement I came up with a few years ago. It shall be the mission of the Stokes County Register of Deeds to serve as custodian of Stokes County land and vital records and other records as needed. The Register of Deeds shall record, maintain, preserve, and provide access to said records in accordance with North Carolina general statutes. The Stokes County Register of Deeds shall also provide excellent customer service and strive to exceed expectations. Our functions go right along with the mission. We record, maintain, preserve, provide access to all the land records in the county, including but not limited to deeds, deeds of trust, powers of attorney, satisfactions, easements and right-of-way agreements, plats and surveys, contracts, notices of foreclosure, bankruptcy, various types of agreements and affidavits, etc. Anything that can affect real property, excluding wills and estate records, which are kept with the clerk of court. We do the same for birth, death, and marriage records. We record assumed business name certificates, and we index all these documents in accordance with the minimum indexing standards set forth by the North Carolina Secretary of State's office. We issue marriage license. We swear in notaries public from North Carolina, provide notary services to the general public, record and maintain military discharges. We upload all notary oaths to the Secretary of State's office daily, upload birth, death, marriage records to the North Carolina Office of Vital Records monthly. We administer the new Think of It program we just started, record, maintain certificates of grave removal, provide copies of everything we have, both certified and general copies, assist customers with land record searches, genealogy searches, etc., and make deposits to the finance office every day. We provide GIS and mapping with copies of our deeds to update the county mapping system, provide the Board of Elections quarterly a death list of our death certificates to help them purge their voter lists. And we took over last year answering the county operator extension. So the wide range of duties there. Any questions before moving to the next one? Okay.
How many I find this interesting, certificates of grave removal?
Not many.
Okay.
I think we've had 2 since I began 5 years. And the first one I recorded was in my first 2 or 3 months in office. And that was the first one in 8 years, because I went back and looked. And that is a complicated process, not the recording, but the whole thing. And these are not recorded until the reinterment's already been completed. All the paperwork has to go through the health department and so forth. I think even the commissioners have a part in it. I don't know all the steps, but because we're not involved, but just the last one. So It's a complicated process, but,
That taking the personnel thing, putting them back in later? Is that
yeah.
what- is that
Yeah,
what
they're disinterring remains and reinterring them somewhere else. I had a question about that not long ago. A realtor called me and asked how to go about doing that, because somebody they had was not going to buy a piece of land until they could move a cemetery. And I said, I would seek counsel on that one. I said, I'm not going to try to interpret the statutes for you. I said, you go ahead and get someone to help you with that. I said, all we do is file the certificate after everything's done. So,
You get involved if somebody tries to move a graveyard?
well, the
Or
only
have they-
step we have in it is after everything's been completed, all the permits have been, I know a certified funeral director licensed funeral director has to be involved. It's a lot to it, but the only thing we have a part of it in is after everything's done, they record the notice with us, the certificate, yeah.
Don't they technically have to, if that actually went that far as to get to the point of moving it, they would have to actually approve it within the county?
I'm pretty sure that's the way I read the statute when that question came up a few weeks ago.
Hopefully that never happened.
I hope not. We did get a survey for that
There's so
property
many
in eventually,
graves
so
that
I
people
think,
don't
I
even
don't
know
think they had
about
to
in
move
Stokes
it.
County
Just
that-
let them be.
Yeah.
Leave them there.
They're in inconvenient locations a lot of times.
Yeah,
It
people.
would be nice if you could move them somewhere else.
And surveyors are supposed to, by law, put that on their maps when they
Indian burial
when prepare a survey. So sometimes they get missed. Sometimes it's just field stones, and you don't really know it's a cemetery. I mean, but
Yeah.
that's something that we do very, very little of. But it's there. Budget considerations. Look at my handout I gave you to see where you are there. I'll go into just a little bit of background first. We're a revenue-making department, not a very, very big one, but we do bring in revenue, and there hasn't been a year that I recall since I became a register. I don't think there was any years before that either when we didn't. We brought in more money than we spent. We didn't require anything from the fund balance to operate.
We're almost done. Click the download button to continue.
All right.
I know last year there was a $13,500 line item on the general fund for our budget, and that was me estimating revenue that we were going to have from our automation and preservation fund, and I put the cart in front of the horse on that one, and I knew the money was coming. I put it in there, and it had to come. It had to be shown somewhere because we didn't have it yet. So and I remember Rick asked me about that before, but anyway, so we do have that account. It's allocated by statute. 10% of registered deed recording fees go towards preservation and automation, and so a lot of our projects come from that, and it's shown as revenue and expenditure on the budget, so it's a wash.
It's the same thing you call technology funds all the time.
Basically, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what it is. It's technically by statute called Preservation Automation Fund, but I think when our previous finance director was here, that's what it was called on the budget line item.
You have to spend it on that.
Yeah, it's earmarked for that. Some counties, it varies county to county. Some people have different interpretations of that statute. And so I know our shelving downstairs, we have some track shelving that just roll on the track to save space. That was paid for out of that fund. But that you could relay that into automation of records maybe. And that was done before I came in. Last year, we grossed a little over $800,000 in the office. The state collects part of our fees by statute. And after we remitted the state monies last year, we netted $509,048 to the county against a $306,000 budget. We brought in a lot more than what we budgeted for. That's not a good barometer of our finances generally. That was our record year, best year we've ever had. I'm looking at a reduction in that this upcoming year. We're still doing great, but it's not going to be the record year we had last year. I think we're seeing things starting to level off from the peak of the market. Those Fed rates were raised a lot, and which historically really are closer to the norm as opposed to, the norm has been low the last few years, but I'd say the last 20-year average is probably 6% or so, maybe. I don't. Anyway, but the Fed raising the rates says our transactions have gone down just a little bit, but nothing compared to what it was pre-COVID. We're still above COVID numbers, pre-COVID numbers. My priority this year for the budget, before I get into that, when I came into office, my first goal was to improve access where it could be improved upon, which we've done, and that's an ongoing measure. It never stops. And to improve or to add to services, and the foundation of all that was going to be another position in the office, which we got part-time and then full-time over the last 3 years, and I'm very thankful for that. When the market went haywire, we saw a 35% increase in transactions, which that position has helped us a lot. And we've been able to add services that we didn't used to have because of this position. We previously, especially at lunchtime, we'd have one person in the office maybe for a half hour by themselves, and I didn't like that. I had a situation when a deputy register who had previously worked in social services, she was by herself during lunch, maybe a half an hour one day, and she had a customer come in that she had dealt with at DSS who didn't qualify for benefits, and she had turned him down repeatedly, and he remembered her and had choice words with her, and that was a he said, she said kind of thing, and I said, we're not going to get into this mess again, so I put in for the part-time. Then when the transactions went up, we were able to get it full-time, and I appreciate the boards I've worked with for doing that for us. But pay is, we've increased services, we've added coverage to the office, and the salary study didn't treat them the way I would have liked. And at the time, we probably could have made another push, but that time was when I was putting that position full time, and I didn't want to get into you can have it one way but not the other, and I'd rather have the position than the salary at the time. And this is my next step as far as getting the office where I want it, is to get the employees up to where I feel like they should need to be for the amount of services they provide, for the workload that's on them, to get them more competitive for future recruitment, especially when there is turnover. So I know that a closed session is offered, and I'd like one whenever that time is available.
We're going to do that at the end of all this,
Right.
all these other sessions.
That's the kind of the last piece to the foundation I'm laying for this office going forward. Once we get that in place, if it's available, if we can work that out, I anticipate some pretty smooth sailing as far as budgets go. This is going to be kind of a as needed from there on. This is the last big ticket item I'm looking for before we move forward on anything else. Training, in-house training. The School of Government at Chapel Hill publishes a guidebook they publish a guidebook, and there's been several editions of it. Most recent one came out last summer, and it covers everything the office does, all operations of any kind. And we start with that guidebook and go through sections of it, and with any trainees we have. And it's a twofold approach. The guidebook, studying it, is the first approach. And then on-the-job training, where we apply what we've learned from the guidebook. The guidebook, like I said, is published by the School of Government. The author is a professor there who is a former Marine officer, an attorney, an expert in real property law, and is the overall advisor to the North Carolina Association of Registers of Deeds. Very, very smart man, and this guidebook is the Bible for our office, and so we delve heavily into that and during our training in-house. And when I'm training someone, I'll get certain tasks put together, and they master those, then we move on and from there. And The last one, which is one of the cornerstones of the office, is indexing our records. It varies document to document and is complex, and that's usually the last thing our trainees learn. Most registrar's offices across the state are broken into at least two divisions: real estate records and vital records. Some very large offices have their own IT team, scanning team, indexing team. All of our employees cross-train. We're way too small to be broken up that way, and cross-training's been in place in that office for generations, decades, and it always will be. Off-site training, the School of Government, of course, offers classes. The main class is called the Basic School for Registrars of Deeds. It's a certificate class. I took it my first year in office. It's a 2-day class in Chapel Hill. It covers all of what the guidebook covers, and the professor is the same man who writes the book. The association just passed, at the request of the professor, that we wait a year before sending anybody to this class. He was having difficulty getting the information to the people and getting them to understand it. So he's wanted them to get their feet wet in the office first. And so we're going to wait for any new employees that may come about. After a year, we'll send them to this school, and that's the basic school. There's also an advanced class for staff. They split that one between, they have an advanced class for registrars, which I took 2 or 3 years ago, and then they have an advanced class for the staff. And they are not taught or offered every year. They are offered every so many, 3 or 4 years. There's also our association has workshops in the spring. There are 8 of them spread across the state, usually in April and May. They cover a variety of topics, and they vary year to year. And since we provide general notary services, all but one of our employees is as a notary, and we send them to Forsyth Tech's notary class, which is a 2-day class. And that's about all the off-site training. And the Register Deeds Association also offers other workshops throughout the year. It's not just the spring, but that's the main one. Turnover, generally, the office has experienced low turnover. In an office run by an elected official, when there's a regime change, sometimes things, staff changes are made. I inherited 2 staff members who had a lot of years with the office. One retired within a couple of years. One moved on to another position in the county. And so I had a complete turnover. But the staff I've got in place now have been there 3.5 years together with us. And I want to tie in turnover to the salaries in the closed session too. Forsyth Tech, like I mentioned, that notary class, that would be a big help at the Meadows location, because I think I took it at Tobacco or King campus, Northwest campus.
Is it offered in Meadows?
Not to my knowledge. That would be great, and not just for my office. That would benefit the county altogether to get the notary class there, because there are notaries in most every other department, or most of them. That would be good. I've thought about inquiring about a real property law class. I know Forsyth has one. I don't know if they have any online classes available for that. That would help us as far as knowing what real estate instruments do, and would help us with indexing and recording too. That's just one thing I thought about that Forsyth Tech offers that would be beneficial to us. It wouldn't be a high priority. I mean, we get enough training as it is, but that would just be something extra. Goals. Everybody good so far? Any questions? Back indexing project. I've spoken about this before. We've been working on it for over a year. I received an update yesterday. We should have it imported into our system by probably March or April. To access our records prior to 1993, which is when we went with our current land records vendor, records are only indexed by last name, and then you have to go down through each name, each entry in the index to find the first name you're looking for, and then find the right record you're looking for, and then find the book and page it was recorded in, and then go out of that system into another system to put that book and page in to pull the image up. This is online access. It's a lot of hoops to jump through, and so everything 93 forward is searchable by first and last name, or given name and last name. And it provides a much narrower scope of results, and you can find records a lot quicker from 93 forward. And so getting this index back to improve access was one of my major goals, and we're at the finish line just about of this one, and it's going to get it back to 1979, which will 30-year title searches the bank requires, 40-year title searches. That's going to encompass that. And we've worked with a different land records vendor to accomplish this, Courthouse Computer Systems. They also run our online ordering system of birth, death, and marriage records, which they don't charge us to use. They passed on, I think it's a convenience fee to the customer to pay for that site, which is $3 or $3.50. But they have a lot of experience doing these back indexing projects across the state for other counties. Counties, even that they're not the principal land records vendor for like us, they do these projects anyway. And the money that's paying for this project is coming out of that automation fund, which is exactly what it's for, automating these records. And it's a 3-year payment. It says 3 years we'll have it paid for. It's about $40-some thousand over the 3 years we're paying to get this done. And I wanted to do it that way because this will help those banks and title searchers get these title searches done. Beyond 40 years are not as common title searches, so there's not as much urgency going back further. So future back indexing projects will probably be done in-house and save some money. Like I said, there's not as much urgency with those. And so I do plan on doing some down the road, but that's years down the road. Everything prior to 93, back to, 79 forward will be fully indexed and we'll have a lot better access to for the general public in the next couple of months. Beyond that, it's still going to be the same as it is now, which is still access. It's just a few extra hoops to jump through to get to it. But we'll get to that when we have appropriate time to. The property notification system I've spoken about before. It's been in place for a couple of 3 years now. The short-term goal for this is just to get more awareness out. I issued a press release when I implemented it. And so what I've talked about, and I know some of you, I spoke about this last night, I'm mailing letters out to whenever a deed is recorded, the grantee on that deed is getting a letter from our office to alert them to this service. It's free. It gives them a notice whenever a document's filed with their name on it. About at least 80, 90 counties now in the state have some kind of system like this in place. Our principal land records vendor, Logan Systems, offered this 2 or 3 years ago, and as soon as they offered it, I jumped on it. I was the first customer that they have, which is about 25 across the state. I was the first one, I think, out of their bunch to do it. It's a wonderful thing in this day and age to have a little bit of peace of mind. And so short-term goal is just getting the public awareness about this. And mailing these letters out with each deed, we're getting some positive feedback. Fleshing out the Think of It program. You're all aware about the Think of It program, and we're getting a lot of veterans to come in, but we're not getting as many businesses to come in as I thought we would. I think it's just more or less they've got the cost of doing business there's a concern for every business owner. They got a lot of priorities, and this is probably not one of them. So I think it's just getting the message to them and encouraging them to participate. I received an email from the Stokes News interim editor about this, and I think it's going to run pretty soon. One question was, why do you think it's good for businesses to participate? And I said, my response was, patriotism in the country is kind of a fading sentiment, and it's a good way to show patriotism, to honor veterans, and people take notice when businesses do that, and I think it's just a good thing for businesses to get into.
Brandon, I was going to mention it to you while you're saying it. I want to do it before I forget. your participation in that. When the libraries were here the other night, Walnut Cove was talking about they do that veterans coffee breakfast on Thursdays at 9. Have you ever been down there during that, like 9 to 11?
No,
You
but the
might-
word's getting out there because those guys are coming in
I was gonna say,
now.
you might just pass out some information there, and that
Oh, well,
breakfast might be a good way to let them know what's going on.
I have been
And they
to,
have one in King at the
Senior center.
senior
I've,
center.
I've already been,
Yeah.
I've spoke to them, I spoke to the Walnut Cove Senior Center, I have put it in the paper. The veterans have, it's not been the issue getting responses from, it's the businesses so far, yeah. Yeah, and like I said, I think it's just not a high priority, and we're just, trying to get word to them and kind of encourage them best. I may get with Tori and Eddie to see about individual reaching out to some of these businesses, to get that word out to them a little bit better. The Chamber of Commerce has all my information, all the information on the program. I know it was distributed to the members. I ran the article in the paper, but it didn't get the attention I thought it would. It got kind of buried toward the back. And I'm hoping the one that's going to be running soon will be better as far as getting the word out. And that's a short-term goal. This summer, the next several weeks, I'm gonna have my focus split just a little bit, and with the baby coming and everything, so I'm not looking at doing a lot of new projects until this summer. But this summer, I want to delve into a topic that first interested me in the office over 15 years ago, which was genealogy. I had a good friend. That my first time in the office was a friend bringing me in to show me how we were related, actually. And when we got our new microfilm reader, we had to have a computer monitor for it to operate on, and to pull the images up. And our vendor gave us a monitor and a computer at no extra cost. It's just part of the agreement we have with them. And it takes the internet to run the software that the microfilm reader requires. And so we've got this computer back there with the internet on it, and nobody looks at it unless they're looking at. They don't need the internet to look up any sites. They just need it for that program for the the microfilm reader. But I want to put that computer to work. I've talked with the finance office about it, but what I'd like to do is buy a subscription to Ancestry.com, to Fold3.com, newspapers.com, and help people with their genealogy searches. We don't have as much as we used to, but I think if we had those resources, we'd get more foot traffic in the office. There's a bundle for those. I think it's $600 a year, which is not a budget-breaking item.
Would be really
But
beneficial.
and I'd personally love to help people with that stuff. I've been doing that for years. Fold3 is a historical military record site. Newspapers is historical newspapers articles. I've used it to find obituaries and stuff. My third great grandfather fought in the Civil War. Lived and died here. He does not have a death certificate recorded in the county, but I found his obituary in the old Danbury Porter, and so that's how I found his death date. That site would be good for that. I did find the bundle was about $600 per year for that, and that's what I'm looking to do. That maybe this summer is to get that in place. It's a subscription, so I'm going to work with finance to see how best to go about that, because that's not something you get invoiced. You pay it now, and we've never, like my association dues, we get an invoice for them, and I send it to finance and pay it. This is something that goes on like a credit card, and so I'm going to work through that.
Also, people that's really digging into that, they're willing to pay a small fee for stuff like that.
Yeah, a lot of people don't. $200 and some a year for Ancestry. I pay it. I have my own personal account. I've been using it for years to help people when they come in. But I think it'd be good to have this for the public as a budget item to get this in place and help them with that, because they come to our office looking at records anyway. And if we don't have it, then we have to send them somewhere else. If we had this, they can find it all right there. Had some notes on it somewhere else here. I think that was it. Oh, I have to get with IT and our vendor too, who provides the computer, to limit the internet access just to those sites. You don't want general internet access on the county, so we'd have to limit the access to just those specific sites, which I don't think would be an issue. And on that same vein, I want to sponsor or host at least a class on starting family tree. Someone from the Genealogical Society, I'm a member of, Historical Society, some folks like that, and maybe go up to the conference room and do something like that. And it'd be a minimal cost. I don't know if any instructors would even charge, but that's just something I'm looking into. It's a short-term goal. Disaster recovery, power outage / cyber attack plan. I had some colleagues that unfortunately experienced a cyber attack, and it wasn't on them individually, it was on their land records vendor, which affected people across the country, because this is a big vendor that has presence in a lot of states anyway. I know there were half a dozen or so counties still not up and running with their software. And this attack occurred right after Christmas. And so they're going on a month now with no access to their software to record, index, scan. And the Register of Deeds office is a conduit for commerce. I mean, you shut down the office and you can't get deeds recorded. That holds up a lot of business. And losing your recording software is a major setback. And so that's a hot topic.
Cyber attack.
On the vendor that these certain counties use. Our vendors never had this issue. I mean, but it could be just a matter of time. So basically what a plan would look like is going back to the old way of doing things with stamps and just handwritten books and index books. So the association is a hot topic this year. And so I won't be at the March conference because it's going to be too close to the baby coming, but I'm working on I will go to the fall conference. I haven't missed a conference since I've been in office yet. But and we're actually, my district's hosting it this year in Winston-Salem in September. But that is a topic across the state now in our circle, is what to do when your system goes down. So I'm working on that now, and I know the Register of Deeds Association is putting together some guidelines, best practices in case something like this happens. So I'm going to take what I'm looking at now, and then see when they get something like that put out, fill the gaps in and formulate a policy to what to do in case this happens here. Ransomware was the big thing over the last 2 or 3 years. And I don't know if that particular vendor got a ransomware attack, but it was a cyber attack. I don't know what the motives were. But power outage, our servers are on a battery backup for about an hour, hour and a half, 2 hours at the most. We can function in a power outage. And then disaster recovery piece of it is flooding, fire. All of our land records are completely backed up on the cloud, on servers at our vendor's location in Greensboro, servers here. Redundancies are built in to keep our records safe, at least the digital copies. The original records, our vault is not fire rated. That was one of the first things I was going to look at coming in, was putting well, I asked my predecessor, Kathy, what she wanted to do, what was something that she was looking at doing, hadn't gotten done. And that was one thing she mentioned, was about getting a fire-rated door on the vault. And so I had Public Works Director at the time, Mark Delahunt, look up in the Celotex, and that vault's not fire-rated, so a fire-rated door wouldn't do any good. But that's another can of worms I'm not going to get into about the vault. But
How big a vault do you need?
Oh, the vault's fine like it is. We don't have a space issue. Kathy put those rolling shelves in, which saved us some space. And
Fireproof, you just said that.
it's not fireproof, no.
It can be fireproof without rebuilding it.
I haven't really looked into that. I've been focusing on other things, but yeah, it's the old one down at the old courthouse. I think it was fire rated, but this one's, and I don't know what the one downstairs in this courthouse over here was. I don't remember. I never went in there when the Register of Deeds was still there. That's courtroom C now. I don't know what the vault looks like there, but ours is not technically fire rated. But that's. But in the event something happens, everything's backed up. All the primary records we have can be reproduced from digital copies. It's just the historical value of the old records that we'd lose. But that is something low priority right now. It could be perceived as high priority, but everything's backed up in case a disaster happens. And we could reproduce all those images. The only ones that we couldn't would be some of the old marriage license that I'm currently in the process of preserving. As we're preserving those, we're scanning them too. And there's just a few of those left to digitize that's not been digitized. And a couple of more books have not been digitized. And outside of that, that's about it. But I'm working on that as a short-term goal too. Long-term preservation, I just spoke about preservation, is a pet project of mine. It has been since I came into office. Getting these records preserved and keep them from further deterioration. Like I said, these are primary records, would start to be kept. Primary records per statute in our office are to be kept indefinitely. And we've got a lot of records that are really, really old. Probably the oldest records in the county go back to the 1780s. We've got the original copies of the deeds and land records, earliest ones. The earliest marriage records go back to the 1830s, and those had not been touched when I came into office. Kathy had gotten the deed books, which were the oldest done, up to probably the 1880s or just before that. And I got the next 5 books of those done. And then I turned my attention to the marriages because by that time they were now the oldest ones. And so we've got those caught up just about to where the deed books are as far as preservation. And you could pick one up and it would tear. It was terrible shape. And so I just got a quote for this upcoming budget to get the next set of marriage records done. And this all comes out of that preservation fund. So it's a wash on the budget. We're getting 2 or 3 years of these done at a time. It's expensive work, and it's not and it's time consuming. It's labor intensive. I toured their lab in Greensboro. It's called Coalfile Technologies. They're based in Dallas. They got a lab in Greensboro that services Virginia, North and South Carolina, and they do a lot of good work, and it is very meticulous work. Anyway. We've got the marriages currently digitized back to 1913. And so we're getting our marriages preserved and digitized at the same time, those old ones up to 1913, to get them all digitized. And I should have that done. I think I put 5 or 6 years. It could be longer than that because we're not getting but 2 or 3 years done at a time. And we can get 2 of these projects done in the budget cycle, roughly, maybe 1 per budget cycle. That back indexing project has taken up a good chunk of our automation and preservation fund, and that's dedicated for the next 3 years. And once that's paid off, we'll be able to do more of this. But that was a priority, the back indexing project, even more so than this. Plats, we've got a lot of plats and surveys that were glued or stapled to the old deed books. We haven't produced an actual physical deed book since 1970. Everything went to microfilm after that, and then from microfilm to digital. And so a lot of those old surveys are still in the books. And a lot of those have not been scanned in. They don't have online copies of them like we do with most other surveys. And so that's not something I'm going to start this year. That's probably going to be, I'm not turning this into a campaign speech, but that's something, if I get another term, I'm going to start as soon as I get into that term. That's going to be a very, very big project, overhauling their filing system and to get them digitized and scanned and get online. I get calls a lot about, well, this map's not online. Where can I find it? And I have to take a picture and text it to them, basically, or find a way to email it to them that way. Mapping's got a lot of these scanned, but a lot of them they don't. And so this is going to be beneficial one of or 2 ways. It will give them their own new book and page reference as opposed to the old deed book. And it will also digitize them for disaster recovery purposes and get their images on the Access site. I've spoke about all this stuff comes out of our Preservation Automation Fund. 10% of our fees go toward that by statute. We're averaging around 20,000 the last 4 or 5 years of 20,000 per year collected for that purpose. The preservation work is expensive, and that's why we only get so many of them done a year. Another long-term project would be cemetery mapping. I know Richard spoke about this when he was here. We've been talking about this for over a year. And I think he says low priority. And I really wouldn't even be a part of it because I'm not into mapping, but I have a lot of connections to the historical community through the Historical Society, Genealogical Society, and there are a lot of volunteers in those groups that would help us out. And if we can coordinate some of those to get this done, it's going to be years in the making. But I know Buncombe has done this, and I've talked to the register there about it. 2 or 3 other counties have done this with their register and tax office mapping department. And so I've gotten some information from them about that, and it's low priority, but it's something good, another good service, another good layer on the mapping system. Top 3 issues, personnel, salaries, and I don't request stuff just to request stuff. If I didn't think it was well deserved, I wouldn't put it in here, but I really believe it is. That was the last piece I said in building a good foundation in our office to continue to provide the services we're providing and also expand if we could where feasible. And so I'll talk about that a little later. But expanding and strengthening services is another top issue. Where feasible, as I said, back indexing. We're going to continue. Once this is completed, we'll still look at more back indexing. I think of that, fleshing that program out, getting the businesses on board, the property notification, getting that awareness out, the plat overhaul, the filing system, the genealogy assistance, cemetery mapping, all these things we're expanding and strengthening what we already have in place. That's a top issue, is just improving our services and expanding them where we can. Also, training incentives, something I just have been thinking about since I got your template. And it could be worked into where I'm envisioning as far as salary. If we could, if we can put some training incentives, it could be a combination of maybe not as much pay grade as I'm looking for. If we can put a training incentive in there on top of that, our qualifications are high school education. But if you come in and go beyond that, I think recognition, it goes a long way toward morale. And just 1%, 2% here and there where we can get it'd be years of training once you reach that advanced school that Chapel Hill offers. That'd probably be the big ticket item as far as an incentive. After that, just seminars and workshops where you can get one. But I think that would go a long way toward morale and recognition. And I don't have any questions for the board. I'll say it's an honor. It's the greatest honor I've ever had to be registered of deeds in this county. I love this county. I've been born and raised here all my life, and I've worked very hard to build a customer service-driven department. That was my background. Was customer service before I went into the real estate business, and even then, still working with the public. Service isn't just a word in our office; it's the whole goal. And if there's anything we can do for anybody at this board, just let us know. And that's all I've got.
You're the Chick-fil-A of the government center.
We got it to King. I think that's about the closest we're gonna get it.
Okay, we'll go ahead and do questions right quick. Commissioner Mendenhall, have you got any questions or comments?
I just want to ask Brandon, as I was listening to you talking about your genealogy interest and also some of the other things that with the historical background. Brandon, I know you said that you had an article getting ready to probably come up shortly in the Stokes News. Do you have other ways of getting the word out about your different services other than just the Stokes News? Do you go to see different groups and tell them what y'all offer or anything of that nature?
Yes, sir. That's one of the things I've enjoyed about my job the most is I also look at one of my duties as being chief information officer for the office. I have been to the Rotary clubs, I've been to Rudolphin clubs, I've been to both senior centers to talk about our services. Matter of fact, Rich and Brim and I work really well together. He's very good to work with. We're the tax officer and register of deeds both deals with land. We have to work close together. We've been going the last year to the senior center in King to talk about what we do respectively toward. They have elderly exemption on taxes, but also talk about fraud, fraud alert, deed lock and stuff. You see these commercials on TV. So I talk about that. I'm working on information about the top scams that you see on property and putting together a little kind of lecture on that for civic groups. And so, yeah, I do go, and sometimes we go together to talk about these services that we both offer. I go to those groups and talk, and I get stuff in the paper. I have a Facebook page that I put announcements on there too. Social media, print media, and going to speak to the civic groups. That's about as much as I can do, but really enjoy doing it. We field a lot of good questions.
Brandon, I think you're doing a great job, and I really like the way you really increased the different services in the register of deeds, and just continue the good work. And that's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner Mendenhall. Brad, got comments, questions?
Do you take a lot of cash at your counter? Like
Not as much.
Fees or
Not as much. Most of our money comes in through ACH transfer. A good 80 to 90% of our documents come in electronically now. And those are not just individual submitters. We don't have submitter agreements with an individual. It's with banks, attorneys' offices, credit unions, so forth. So when an individual comes in, sometimes they'll pay cash. Oftentimes it's a credit debit card. I talked with somebody this week. I said, I'm gonna see if we can start taking eggs. I said, as much as eggs. I said, we're gonna see about that. But we take debit, credit card, cash, check, money orders, and then the ACH transfers through the electronic filing. But we don't take in a lot of cash, but it just kind of varies day to day.
do you balance it every day and deliver it every day?
Last
or
thing we
wherever it
do.
goes?
Last thing we do is balance the daily totals in the drawer, credit card slips, all that. We balance that, and then we make a deposit off of that the next morning and send it to finance.
I appreciate, because ever since I kind of started paying special attention to the government politics here in Stokes County, one of the things that I recognized and I appreciated was that you would come and give regular reports, briefings to the board. So I appreciate that. So I kind of follow that along, and you run a good ship.
Thank you.
As far as I can tell. Just keep up the good work.
Thank you. One of my goals has been to the public don't know a lot about what we do. They get us confused with the clerk's office and all this, and so that's one thing I've been trying to do since I came in was to provide information to as many people as I can about what we do, and that's when I started coming to the commissioners' meetings.
Last comment I have, because I know that, you know, you got a few things you want to put it in your budget, and I don't have a problem with that. But in terms of like, one of the things I'm sure that'll help the manager, and it'll definitely help me, is when you make your budget requests, you know, make sure that it's well thought out and what the cost associated is.
Right.
And you got to remember, it's just not the immediate what goes into the paycheck. It's, you know, the benefits, retirement, and those are, you know, reoccurring costs. So that'll expedite as we get into the budget stuff, you know, what we can do and how we can incorporate it. It'll save time.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. That's all I got.
Commissioner Wood?
Brandon, I think you're doing a great job. You've always impressed me of having your act together. One of the things I noticed on your report here, I'm a big fan of cross training. I think that's a major plus for anybody to do. It makes the employee more valuable, and it don't leave you shorthanded when you're in a crunch.
Right.
Do you have any other than the ones you mentioned? You got any other software updates you're going to be needing? Or are you pretty well?
We're pretty well set. We, our vendor is one of the top vendors in the state, and they provide us with hardware. The only county hardware we have is my desktop computer and one more computer to do our financing on. We put that into the gyms and for the staff to punch in and out on for attendance. And that's the only two county computers we have. Everything else is provided by Logan Systems. And they provide receipting software, which is recording software, scanning software, indexing software. I'm probably missing a couple others too, but
So they're all up to date.
Logan Systems is as top notch as it gets.
Great. That's all I got.
Commissioner Cox?
It's a very good report. Appreciate all the time that went into preparing it. And I know since I've had a couple of years to work with y'all, been really impressed with the changes that you've made and the things that you've done to, you know, move your office forward. You know, I think it's fine to come back to us at closed session with some of your concerns about pay, and I'd be interested to hear, you know, your concerns and where you'd want to go with that as we move closer to the budget times. I think it's a good idea to, you know, do the cemetery mapping. I think that's a good idea. I like the Think of Vet program a lot. I appreciate you doing that and implementing that. You know, you just can tell that you care about the county and that you care about these records. They're important to you, and you know they're important to our county to preserve them and to really look after them. And I know they're in good hands with you, so that makes me feel good.
Thank you.
Yep. Okay, Brandon, one thing I probably should have mentioned at the beginning is that for our elected officials, that be you and the sheriff, this is optional, so you didn't have to participate, but we appreciate you doing it.
I love talking about my office.
Sheriff's also chosen to participate as well later today, so we appreciate that from both you guys. Are your pay increases requests going to be for reclassifications? Is that what you're thinking?
Yeah, but the grade itself, and it's not going to be dramatic. But well deserved, well earned. Mostly it's just kind of twofold. It's appreciating what we have and the employees that we have, and they work incredibly hard. And they're all just like I am. They're all customer driven, customer oriented. They go above, way above, and we get those compliments daily, and I mean daily, compared to other counties, other offices that they have to deal with, and it's not enough sometimes just to say thank you for your job, you know, for doing it. And sometimes you got to put your money where your mouth is, and historically the office has done pretty well. You know, we're similar to the clerk's office, and I can tell you the state's got deeper pockets than we do, but, you know, it's still, I like to be competitive when I can, when it's feasible. And if it wasn't well-deserved and well-earned, I wouldn't be bringing it to you.
Okay.
Kind of where I stand.
Is it optional to be a notary in your office? They can, it's
Like I
personal
said,
choice.
all but one is, and I requested them to. Don't require it, but since we do offer general notary services, some registrar's offices don't do that. It's on our fee schedule, which is set forth by the General Assembly. So it is a service that's on our fee schedule. Some registrars choose not to provide those services because of a conflict. We sidestep the conflict is being checking your own work. If you're checking the notarial certificate on a document that has to have one, and then you're also recording it, well, if you're providing the notarial certificate and recording it and checking that, you're checking your own work. And so what we do is whoever notarizes a document in our office, and then if it has to be recorded in our office, someone else in the office records it. So that notary and employee is not checking their own work. And so I think it's a good service to the public. I want to keep doing it. So I do request new people to take that class.
Okay. I'm glad you're working for SciTech. The reason we have that on our template is that we're really encouraging all departments to use for SciTech and integrate them into their operations, since we've got such a significant investment there in Meadows and a really good person running that campus over there. We like to take major advantage of what they can offer. Do you have to do you do competitive solicitations for the various vendors you use?
We have been with our vendor for 30 years, as I said, they are one of the leaders in their industry in our state. That's Logan Systems. We have a contract renewal every 3 years. The School of Government, our advisor particularly, is pushing that right now, contract literacy, knowing the details of your contracts going in with vendors. And so our contract's up for renewal, I think, next year. And so I renewed it when I first came in, I think, or a year into that. And it's something I'm looking at more and more. I know our vendor was recently bought out. The level of service has not changed whatsoever. But going forward, it is something that I'll be looking at more as far as getting some more thoughts on providers. But right now, we're really set with them. The preservation vendor, again, they are top notch as far as it goes. They're local with their lab, and the other vendor that we use for our online system for ordering records, copies of vital records, and they're doing our back indexing project. They're the largest vendor in the state for land records. They have 33 or 4 counties, so about a third of the state use them. Them and Logan are the two best in the business in our state. And Logan is a full service. I look at that as first thing I look at is what services do they provide, and they are turnkey. A lot of vendors don't provide hardware. They do. They're full service. And so I'll regularly look into other vendors just to see what's offered. And I do that usually at our conferences because that's when we all come together. And there's probably 7 or 8 vendors that are used across the 100 counties, maybe even 8 or 9. And Courthouse Computer Systems in Logan are the number 1, number 2. But I do fill out other ones at the conference when we're all together. But as far as an RFP or anything, I haven't done any of those.
Yes, there's different rules for services versus other kinds of things, projects that you're doing, whatever, for architect services and that sort of thing. So I just want to make sure we're doing a fair application, and 30 years with one company, that's a long time. So
it is. There's a reason for that.
yeah, And we were with the library folks, I think somebody mentioned this already, and they are offering the Ancestry.com free.
Are they?
Yeah, and so they must be doing kind of exactly what you're talking about doing, or something very similar to it, I guess.
I wish I had known that.
Well, they may have just started. I don't know. They
Yeah.
were in here yesterday, right?
I
Or,
mentioned that last year at their update too.
Oh.
They've been doing that.
oh, was it? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I just, only reason I mentioned it is it might be some way you partner with them a little bit or something
Yeah.
on some of that
We,
stuff.
when I was researching my family years ago, I was between the registrar's office and the library back and forth, because they've got some records that we don't have, that they're not county records. The census, we don't have census records at the county,
I think it's a really good idea doing that genealogy stuff. That's an excellent idea.
Yeah,
I think it'd be
people-
really well received by the public.
Yeah, it's just something else that's very minimal cost and just another layer we can help people with.
Yep. Does anybody else have any other comments, questions? Thank you very much. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
5-minute break.
Yeah, let's do a 5-minute break before Vicki gets up here. Okay, call us back into order from our recess, and our next presenter is Vicki from Senior Services. And so go ahead, Vicki, and just make your presentation, then we'll do questions and back and forth at the end.
Okay.
Good to have you.
Thank you. Good morning. I think it's still morning. Maybe. I'm not sure. A little bit about myself. My name is Vicki East, and I'm Program Director for Stokes County Senior Services. I've worked for Stokes County March 16th, will be 31 years. Wow. I've worked those 31 years in the Senior Services Department in some way, shape, or form. I started in 92 as a clerk at Senior Services. Then I went part-time at the Wanacove site, nutrition site. I was site manager, and then I was Senior Center Director in Walnut Cove, and then I came back to Senior Services as Program Director. So as Program Director, I've been in that position about 10 years. I can't believe it's been that long, but yes, time does fly. So that's a little bit about me. I was born and raised in Stokes County. Care a lot about the older adults that we provide services for, and we try our very best to be really good advocates for them. Our department is a small department. There's 8 of us there, including me, and then we have about 50 volunteers. Our volunteer base has declined since 2020. I do believe that was COVID related. We were under lots of restrictions during that time, and we still provide some of those. We are sanitizing more, trying to keep everybody healthy. But during COVID, we lost a lot of our really good volunteers, and we haven't been able to build that volunteer base back, which is a concern. We're trying, and I actually registered a new volunteer this week. I'm happy to report. She lives kind of center of the county. She wants to help us deliver meals, so I think we can probably use her in the various different areas that we serve. So we're excited about that. So per my report, just an overview of our department, things services we provide. First of all, our mission is it is the mission of Stokes County Senior Services to provide comprehensive and timely services to the seniors of Stokes County to ensure that they remain independent for as long as possible and to improve or maintain their quality of life. We want to keep our seniors at home as long as we possibly can, and the services that we provide enable them to stay there. The services our department provides is medical and general transportation, congregate meals, home-delivered meals, insurance counseling, legal vouchers. With the legal vouchers, Wyvetti serves Stokes County for that particular service, but we partner with them so that we can fill out that information for our clients, and somebody from Wyvetti doesn't have to come into the county to do that from Booneville. So we have a great relationship with them, and it's working very well. We've provided this service for 15 years or more, doing it this way, and it's working out. We also provide the heat relief program, which is the FAM program, and that's offered in June through August. We get about $359 to purchase fans, and you can either be disabled or be 60 years of age to qualify for a fan. A lot of times we have to keep a waiting list for that because that funding is minimal, but we don't have trouble giving those away. They usually go fairly quickly, and a lot of people in our county really need those. So we try to provide them as best we can. We also have the Farmers Market Voucher Program that is offered in July. We issue vouchers that we receive from the state. I believe last year we issued 50. And they can use those vouchers to go to our local farmers market to purchase produce. And it has to be produce items. It can't be honey, it can't be nuts, it can't be meat, it can't be eggs, unfortunately. But it has to be produce items. That program is very well received. And if we do send them to our local market in King, and if they can't find what they need there, then we do offer a trip into the Greensboro Farmers Market, the large one there at Colfax. And that's a good day trip for them, so they enjoy that. They get to go eat lunch and buy some produce, so everybody's happy. But everybody enjoys that program, and we want to keep it, maintain it as best we can. The Walnut Cove Senior Center is also under our umbrella. We are currently in the process of applying for our 4th recertification. The Walnut Cove Senior Center is a certified center of excellence by the state. The first certification was in 2008 in February, and this upcoming recertification, we have to be recertified every 5 years. And if we're recertified and we maintain that status of excellence, we can apply for 3 shares of the general purpose grant. That's state money. This year, the allocation was $14,535. That does require a 25% local match, which the county very generously provides for us. We use that funding to pay the instructors to teach the classes, and it doesn't cover all the classes that we have there. But we have to maintain 15 ongoing programs, activities, and classes in order to maintain that certification status. So actually, we probably have, well, we have more than 18 or 20, but if you lose one class, maybe participation falls off and it's just not as well attended. Well, we want to ask our seniors in the county, what do you want? What can we provide for you? So if a class is not working, then we want to plug something else in. But unless we maintain more than that 15, then we're non-compliant for that recertification status. This is not a problem. We have some awesome instructors, and everybody seems to enjoy them. Ms. Reba Dodson is the coordinator there at the Senior Center, and she is going above and beyond. She is reaching out into the community to offer classes. It's part of our Senior Center Without Walls. We are offering classes in the Francisco area. That starts in February. We're offering some yoga classes up there. We're partnering with a local church to provide that. We're offering exercise classes at the Lawsonville Community Building. We're working with Lawsonville Ruitans to do that. We're actually partnering with the King Senior Center, and the King Senior Center is paying for 2 classes a month, and the Walnut Cove Senior Center is paying for 2 classes a month. So that offers them an exercise class once a week. And we're also working with them to bring other programs to that area. Hopefully maybe some lunch and learns on different topics that people have asked about, things of that nature. We're trying to bring programs to the people that can't get to us. So we're trying to go to their community. Because as you all know, we have a literal mountain that divides us. So we have the option in this county. We have 2 great senior centers, one in King and one in Walnut Cove. So seniors can participate at either senior center that they choose. But we still hear there's transportation issues. So we try to go to them, to their community, to provide classes for them. And that is working very well. We're excited that we're able to do that. Of course, in doing this, we have to come up with creative or innovative ways to provide the service. We can't charge for all of the classes, and we don't want to charge for all of the classes. We want to offer as many free classes to the older adults in the county as we possibly can. but sometimes we do have to charge. The yoga class that we're going to offer in Francisco is, I believe we're charging $5 for that class. And we do charge for the ones that we have there at the senior center. She also has a yoga class at the Pine Hall Community Center. So we're outreaching to that area as well. Ms. Rip is just doing a fabulous job down there, and the calendar you have attached to the back of your report those are some of the things that she's doing. Now, that'll look very different in February because, like I said, she's offering some new classes. If you have any questions about that, I'll be happy to try to answer them. And I'm just going to continue along with this report if that's okay. Thoughts for the next budget? I do foresee a possible request for increased funding for our meal program and our transportation. Our vendors for transportation are Wyvetti Transportation Services and Gentle Care. Price per mile is crazy. We just had an increase this past year. I have no idea if we'll have another one this coming year. It is possible with fuel prices the way they are. I don't really know. I hadn't talked to Jeff about that, but it's a good possibility that there may be an increase. So I do foresee that I'm going to have to ask for more funding for those services. The funding for that, other than county money, is home and community care block grant funding. That little pot of money tends to kind of stay stagnant. It doesn't go up any. If anything, it's decreased sometimes. So we request all of that we can to put toward these services, and it's still not quite enough, because there's just a need in the county. We are halfway through, we're 6 months in, and the block grant funds were almost completely, with our general transportation, I've almost completely expended that funding. And for general, we're over-serving. And we have the county monies that buffer. Thank you very much. We appreciate that, because without that, I'm not quite sure what we would do. But I got two phone calls this morning before I come up here, people requesting transportation services. They may drive local here in the county, but they may have to go to Clemens to a doctor, a specialist, and they don't drive to Clemens. So they contact us. And it seems to be a lot lately, we are having to transport people to Clemens. And if your doctor tells you this is where he's going to see you, the client doesn't have any choice. Our policy states that we transport them to the nearest facility close to them. And we do that for grocery shopping, for the bank, for the post office, things of that nature. But for doctor's appointments, it's different. I just don't see how we can restrict, because the client, they can't choose where they go.
I don't think you can. My wife's out there in Clemens right now getting a scan for that same reason.
Yeah, I don't.
Where they sent her.
Well, when we ask, because, we try to be good stewards of the funding, so we ask, is this the closest? Well, this is what my doctor told me that I had to do. So we're kind of at their mercy. So there again, if we're taking somebody from Sandy Ridge out to Clemens, it's expensive. So I anticipate that expense rising, unfortunately.
Do you just wait there until they're done with the doctor's appointment and then just bring it back, or do you?
Well, with Wyvetti, they actually have, I'm not sure how many buses are in their fleet, but they have drivers, and they are going and coming all the time. So they schedule. We take the transportation request in our office, and then we log it into the Wyvetti transportation software, and then they schedule the appointment. 90% of the time, the person is picked up and transported along with maybe 3 or 4 other people that are going in that same vicinity or that same direction. They're dropped off, and then they're given a phone number for them to call when they're finished with their appointment. Now, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that wait times aren't long sometimes, because they are, especially with Wyvetti having trouble getting people to drive for them. They just can't hire enough people that they need. So there have been some extended wait times, and when we get phone calls about that, because they do let us know, and it's a long day. If you pick up somebody at 9 o'clock in the morning and they don't get back home until 5 in the afternoon, that's a long day for a senior citizen, especially somebody that has chronic issues going on, chronic illnesses and things of that nature. That is a really long day.
They don't want to leave the county in the first place.
Well, that's true. So, of course, then I'll call Wyvetti and try to find out, okay, look, what happened here? Why did this person have to wait so long? Or why were they picked up so early? And, of course, then, most of the time, it's the driver issue. They don't have enough drivers to cover
Is it because
all
of
of
pay?
the
Or is
demand.
it because of pay, or is it just?
Well, sometimes it's pay, and other times they just don't get people to apply. They've had a lot of that during the COVID things. People just weren't applying for jobs, and they had hired 2 or 3 new drivers for our county. Sometimes they hire them, they go through training, because there's about 3 or 4 weeks of training that a driver has to go through. And then they may work one day and they don't come back. They've had that happen 2 or 3 times that I'm aware of. So, but those fans for Wyvetti, they're moving and shaking. They're going all the time, nonstop. They're going, because Wyvetti also provides this transportation for dialysis patients. So they may have to take them to Winston or Clemens or King. They go all over. Our other vendor is General Care, and it's a little bit different with them because they're a small company, and sometimes they do go drop off weight. It depends on the length of time that the person's going to be with the doctor. But they're a little more flexible because they're a small company. I think there's 2 people that work for that company.
Are they a private company?
And they're private, yeah. But they do a great job. The clients that ride with them, they really like them, and they do more one-on-one, and, our clients like that. Of course, it's not possible for us to put up all of our clients with them, but anyway. Our vendor for our meals is Providence Community Meals. It's a division of Second Harvest. We are now in the process of getting our annual surveys out to our clients regarding our meal program. We do that in January. We actually try to get all those surveys back in by the 31st of January so that we can tabulate and total all the responses. And responses vary. And it's funny because different parts of the county, they like different things. So our King people may like things that our Francisco people don't like. And it's very difficult to please everybody. But we try
That comes
our
with being a
best.
senior citizen. I witnessed that firsthand.
We do our very best. If there is a food issue, if there's a valid complaint and it's a food issue, if it's a temp issue, if it's a spoiled food issue, if it's an unedible product issue, those things I can go to the caterer with and say, hey, look, this is what's happened. And they're really quick to fix it. Not that we've had any of that to happen. Even if I call with a dislike, they are like, okay, well, how can we fix it? I'm like, well, I don't know, because this side of the county enjoyed that meal, but this side of the county didn't enjoy that meal, so I'm not quite sure how to do that. So we try to come up with that happy in between for everybody. It's not always possible, but we do try. Last year's surveys, the majority of the clients that we serve, they like the food. they ate all the food. They feel like that it's providing them good nutrition. Some of our clients, that may be the only meal they eat that day. And I do know for a fact that we have clients because they've told me that. They've told me that themselves. So the meal program is a needed program. And of course, we can't provide them steak or pintos and potatoes every day. And anybody that we put on, we try to explain, look, this meal is not going to be like something you would prepare at home. I mean, it's just not. For outlying areas of the county, the way that we provide the service for those clients is it's a frozen pickup box of 5 meals, because we may not have volunteers to travel to all the different areas of the county, but we still want to provide the service. And we do a lot of that. But the client has got to understand that that's like a frozen meal that you might get at the grocery store, you know what I'm saying? So sometimes they're a little, well, I didn't know it was going to be like that, you know. But for the most part, according to our survey information, the people are satisfied. And if they're not, then we try to do what we can to make sure that they are. Training and succession planning. We cross-train in our department because we're a small department. We can't carry out services any other way. If I have, like during COVID, that was something that really concerned me. I'm thinking, if this person's out, this person does a whole lot. What are we going to do? Who's going to do that job? I'm kind of the backup person for everybody, but everybody in the office is cross-trained to do the other jobs. And we just really can't function unless it's that way. We provide support for the Wanacove Senior Center. If the coordinator needs to be out, some of our staff will go and cover for her, or we use a volunteer. We provide support for the nutrition sites. If a nutrition site manager is out, our staff goes to cover that site that day. If a volunteer is out, our staff goes to cover that route that day. We have meal routes all over the county. We have 3 meal routes in Francisco. We have 3 in King. We have 3 in Walnut Cove. We have 2 in Danbury. We have a frozen meal route in King that's just a special frozen meal route. Our nutrition site manager for King also delivers a frozen meal route on Tuesday after she is finished with her job. She delivers a frozen meal route. So we have meal routes all over the county, and we have to be the backup for all of those volunteers. So some days are good days, some days staff's scattered to the wind, and I don't have enough staff to cover everywhere we need to be. So when those cases arise, we just do what we can to split everything up, and this one take 2 or 3 and just go with it. But we managed to get the meals out there because that's most important. Other training issues. We provide most of our training on site. It's kind of a hands-on thing, especially for new volunteers. If we've got a new volunteer coming in, the best way that we have found to train that volunteer is to send them with a current volunteer so that they can be introduced to the clientele. We're not sending a stranger into the home. And then if there's a special door you go to or a special landmark you have to look for, if it's a hard place to find, then the current volunteer can explain all that. So it works very well to be able to do that. Personnel issues. I've got a wonderful staff. Everybody works very well together. They're very, very supportive of one another. We want to provide the best services possible that we can for the older adults in our county. So we do everything we can to make that happen. My staff is very courteous. They try to catch the phones as they come in. Some days those phones are ringing off the hook. And it's everything we can do. Everybody in the office may be on the phone, and we got a vacant line there at one of the desks by the door as you come in, and that phone's just ringing, ringing, ringing. I'm like, good grief. Just don't have enough staff to answer all these lines. But everybody's wonderful. They do a super, super job. We have had some turnover. It was pretty much the same for a really long time. Like I said, I've been with the department for 30 years, so it was the same people, same staff for a really long time. And then it seemed like when that changed, it just kept changing. But the majority of the time, if I ask why a person's leaving, it's due to an increase in salary. And I can respect that. We don't want to ever hold anybody back that's bettering themselves. So, but most of the time, that's the reason that's given. I do anticipate that maybe we might have to ask for a part-time person for the Walnut Cove Senior Center. Reba is a staff of one, and we had a Winston-Salem Urban League employee that worked part-time 20 hours a week. That person retired last week, so now we don't have that afternoon help. We are trying to help Urban League recruit anybody that's 55 that has income qualifications can apply. But right now, we don't have anybody in mind for that particular position. But we are looking. But Reba does need the help, so I'm really considering putting that in our upcoming budget, if possible. For Scythe Tech campus, we have to have I have to have a Serve Safe class every 5 years so that my nutrition site managers don't have to take that class. It's a food safety class. It's 3 days. It'd be wonderful if Scythe Tech could provide something like that for us. We also want to work with Scythe Tech to provide more senior-friendly classes similar to what the Senior Center does. Years ago, when I was director of the Senior Center in Walnut Cove, we worked with Forsyth Tech to offer quilting, crochet, just a variety of different classes. Arts-based classes and like photography, that kind of thing. The Forsyth Tech, I think, lost their funding from the state, and they had to begin charging big fees for those classes for people 65 and older. So that kind of went by the wayside because we didn't have people that wanted to pay that kind of fee. It was $65 for a 6 or 8 week class, depending on what the class was. So I would like to see us be able to get back to that. Reba's working with Forsyth Tech to provide some sensitivity training to the early college students over there. That's one of the things that we have to do for recertification is training to the non-elderly population. And that's a perfect way to enlighten those youngsters so that they understand what a grandparent might be going through. Because the sensitivity training, you will put on special goggles, gloves. You'll be asked to place different colored pills in different piles. It's very hard to do that when you've got cataracts or your glasses aren't just so, or you have arthritis. Opening a pill bottle is difficult. So that sensitivity training addresses all of that. And once the students, I think we've taught 4 classes over there. Once the students go through that, they're amazed. And they're just, I can't believe this is what my grandma goes through. So we're looking to do more of that with them in the future. think that was pretty much it, all I wanted to say about that. Goals for our organization, short-term goals. Recruitment of volunteers. We need to build that volunteer base back. I mean, we just do. Long-term goals, build morale in the department, come up with inventive ways to show the staff how much they're appreciated. I tell them every day, I appreciate you. I appreciate you. Thank you for your dedication. That goes a long way, but sometimes they just need some extra incentive, and maybe that'll keep people in our department also, maybe not have that turnover. Things that keep me awake at night. Have enough staff to provide the services that we provide. Have enough money from one budget year to the next. How to keep my staff happy, keep them there, and keep the stress to a minimum, you know. Part-time salary and comp time. We do have part-time employees. We have 4. We keep our part-time employees under 999 hours, and we structure their hours so that that stays and we don't go over. We don't accrue comp time in our department unless it's absolutely necessary. And if they do accrue the comp time, then it's taken right away. That'll be taken before anything else is taken. But I feel like my staff needs to be at home because family's important. If there's something comes up and there's a need for them to accrue comp time, that's one thing. So, you know, they give me 8:30 to 5. They give you 8:30 to 5. And unless it's absolutely necessary, we try not to do any more than that. My site manager in King, as I said, she delivers a frozen meal route on Tuesdays after she's finished up with work. So she'll accrue about an hour doing that route. But she takes it off anytime she needs time off. Like she'll take that before she takes annual leave or sick leave. In December, the week of Christmas, we shut down the meal sites to give our site managers a reprieve. While Betty usually doesn't run a lot during that time. And we don't have a whole lot of participation at the congregate site, so we've just decided to close them down for that time. Well, then she'll use that time to cover those days as well. Don't have any questions for you. I'd like to invite each of you to come by our department anytime. If you're interested, I can set it up so that you can go out on a meal route with a volunteer. I'd be happy to do that. I think it'd be very enlightening for any of you to come by, see what we do. We have a great department. I think we provide an awesome service to our county. I think that's all I have.
Okay, thanks, Vicki. I agree. You provide an awesome service for the county and do a great job. This is also a great presentation as well. So, we'll see if the commissioners have any questions. I'll start with Commissioner Cox.
I don't think I've got any specific questions, but I'm glad to learn more about your department and what you're doing. Do you, well, one question I might have, the meals that you were talking about that you get from the caterer, is that somebody like local that does your meals?
They're in Winston. They're in Winston.
It's the Providence Kitchen. It's their second harvest food bank.
Okay.
They just relocated. They have a new facility on Shore Fair Drive in Winston, over next to Senior Services.
Okay. I didn't know how they were provided, but I really appreciate all that you do for the senior citizens in the county, and I think sometimes I don't think they're always aware of what is available to help them, but, you know, it's just hard to get that word out to them sometimes. But if they do go to one of the senior centers, I think they're aware, but I've sent plenty of people to try to get them to go to the senior centers to find out more about that. So that's usually where I start with sending them. If they're in King, that they can go there to learn more about what all's available. And of course in Walnut Cove. So, you know, we just appreciate a lot of years that you've put in. For sure, for sure. Thank you.
Mr. Wood?
Well, since I'm the oldest up here, I'm a big fan. I've been involved with Paula up in King with the caretakers. I'm involved with programs at our church. We got a problem. It's not that the word is not getting out. We've got a bunch of elderly people that have a lot of pride. And they'd rather do anything than get a handout. We have a Meals on Wheels program at the church. We do it once a month. We bring it in. We started out, I think Walnut Cove Baptist started the program and asked us if we wanted to do it. And we started once a month. We feed shut-ins that can't get out. And I think we started with 16. We all prepare the meals at home, come together and get it to go. The elderly is lonely.
Yes.
They're wanting to see somebody. And that 16 has grew to 47.
Wow.
And I think we need to get more churches involved. It's a big issue because last time I'd run some numbers, and you might have a better number than I do. The population of Stokes County over 50 is 45%.
It's
So,
growing.
It's growing. Paul has asked me to serve on a couple of committees. I was supposed to be at Lawsonville today to witness the exercise thing they've started up there. I was asked to come for several reasons. But you got my support. Anything I can do, we need to do it. This is going to be a problem. I mean,
It's going to grow, continue
it's going to grow. Paula, I haven't been to Walnut Cove yet. I want to do that next month for sure. But the job that Paula's doing in King is unbelievable. I mean, she's first class.
She's awesome.
And the caretakers program, I was able to keep my dad at home till he passed. Same thing with my uncle. My mom's 91, living at home. I've witnessed it firsthand. I've lived it. The food thing it's the elderly thing. My mom, we can bring her wonderful meals and she complains about them. But she'll open a can of pork and beans and love it. So it's the taste buds change when they get that age. I don't have the answers, but I really do think we need to get the churches more involved to help look after these elderly people because it's a problem. It's sad, is what it is.
Yes.
Good job.
Thank you.
And you, Keith? Commissioner Chandler?
So, like with the volunteers where you made a comment, you try to tell them, hey, I appreciate you, because obviously, I mean, volunteers are not in it to make money,
Right.
but I agree with you, they still want to feel valued. I mean, do y'all, like, once a year or something, like, put on, like, a dinner or something for all the volunteers, or?
We recognize our volunteers. In April, I believe it's the third week of April, it's National Volunteer Week. During that week, we try to provide programs for our volunteers. In years past, we've used the Arts Council space and invited all of our volunteers there to have a volunteer appreciation activity. In December, the first Thursday in December, the Walnut Cove Senior Center has volunteer breakfast, and they recognize all of their volunteers during that time. Sporadically through the year, we do different things for our volunteers. we have found that we can't get volunteers to come to us so much because they don't do it for recognition, the majority of them. They do it just because they want to help out and be involved in the community. So we take volunteer appreciation programs to them. In December, we had muffins and coffee and a small token of appreciation. It was a little gift basket that we did for them. We did that in December for Walnut Cove, for Danbury, and for King to recognize the volunteers that deliver meals for us. We have a volunteer in Walnut Cove that moved here from California to be with her mom. And the very day that she moved here, her mom had her at the center delivering meals. And she's been with us for 26 years. She's a dedicated volunteer. We have another volunteer in Walnut Cove. He and his son volunteers to deliver meals for us, and he's been with us for 20 years. We had a volunteer in King. He's not volunteering anymore. He moved to the beach when his wife retired, but he had been with us for 15 years. So we have volunteers that have been with us a really long time, and we are just so appreciative of those volunteers. But those volunteers are getting older. The lady that's been with us the longest, Miss Harper, she is almost 80, and she is still going strong. She volunteers 5 days a week, delivering meals in Walnut Cove. She's just a super trooper. She's an awesome lady. But we do try our best to provide some thank yous for our volunteers when we can. Many years ago, we had a volunteer appreciation dinner reception, the countywide, and I'm not quite sure what happened with that. I think the group that was putting that together just kind of fell apart. But I don't even remember when it went away. It's been that long ago, but
I remember going to it a couple times.
yeah.
It was in the schools, right? They were in a school cafeteria or something.
We had it in a school cafeteria. We had it at Hanging Rock one year. What are some other? I think maybe we even had it at the courthouse here in the many years ago, though. So that just kind of fell away. But I believe the group that put all that together, I think it just kind of went away or fell apart or something. I'm not sure what happened. I don't remember. But that was huge. That was a huge event because it was countywide.
Yeah.
All the volunteers in the county.
Maybe we'll look into that and see if we can't revive that.
Okay.
But in the meantime, if you could give like notice to Amber and Shannon so they could, like when you all do your volunteer recognition,
Okay.
I would certainly love to be
Okay.
able to come and
Thank you.
see it. So if you do that, and then in the meantime, if you would just kind of, think out of the box a little bit and think about, because I'm more than willing to, go that extra mile for the volunteers to give them that little special recognition. So whether it be, if there's some type of fun activity that is kind of a common theme amongst, most of something that would make them feel special to where they're, even if we had to provide transportation somewhere, fairly local. I mean, not, out of state or something.
Sure.
But just something that, whether it be to, or maybe a private viewing to a show that's popular, like at a movie theater, and the popcorn is free and drinks.
Okay.
Just something like that. You'd know more about what the, what would work. But I think that sometimes when we just need to tailor a little bit because they're making other people happy.
Absolutely.
And so, and I know they get a good sense of feeling from that too by doing that. But trust me, I just think that people like the recognition And it's the old saying too, is, you know, give some action to it. You know, saying it is good, and then the follow through is good too. But thank you for everything you do for the senior citizens, and it seems to be a very well-run program.
Mr. Mendenhall?
Thank you.
We moved.
I just want to say that I have been to some
See you
of the
then.
activities, and Vicki, y'all do a great job. I think I went down one day and participated in a meal with y'all, and I think Don Richardson was doing a class online dancing. And I know most of you volunteers, and I know that the last 2 years has been hard on you as far as maintaining your volunteers, but certainly they are a wonderful group. You do a great job. The two comments I would say is transportation seems to be an issue in many of our programs. I know Wabetti participates in a lot of different groups, but it's like you said, unfortunately, people now, there's so many satellite campuses as far as medical care. I know Clemens, Knoxville, Louisville, Atrium, and Netherlands has satellite campuses, and many of their doctors won't see their people unless they go to those locations. And that's a long, like you said, that's a long trip, and it makes a long day.